Darius. Who the hell is Crestwood I-01? Darius Coleman had never been one for drama. He kept his yard tidy, worked from home, and never caused trouble. But today? Today something was off. For weeks his internet had been slow, buffering videos, dropped calls, the works. So he decided to check his router settings. And that's when he saw it. A device connected to his network, not his phone, not his laptop, not his TV. Something unknown, and worse, it had been running non-stop. His jaw clenched. Someone was stealing his Wi-Fi. With a deep sigh, he stepped outside, leaned against the side of his house, and began updating his password. He had no idea that just a few doors down, someone was watching him. Melanie, Karen, squints, watching Darius from behind her lace curtains. Melanie, to herself, suspicious. What is he up to now? She never liked him, never trusted him. It wasn't that he had done anything wrong. It was just a feeling. He kept to himself, didn't join neighborhood cookouts, didn't chat at the mailbox, and now he was standing in his driveway, typing furiously on his phone. Her mind jumped to the worst conclusion. Melanie, grabbing her phone. 911, what's your emergency? 911 operator. Ma'am, what's happening? Melanie, urgent, hushed tone. There's a man outside. I don't know what he's doing, but it looks suspicious. He's messing with something on his phone, standing in the same spot for too long. I think he might be hacking something. 911 operator. Ma'am, do you have any proof he's committing a crime? Melanie? Just send someone, before it's too late. Sirens, loud, close. Darius looked up just in time to see a police cruiser rolling up to his driveway. His stomach dropped. The doors swung open. 2 officers stepped out. One tall, broad-shouldered, with a no-nonsense stance, Detective Navarro. His partner, Officer Carter, had a more compact frame, but carried the kind of authority that meant she wasn't messing around. Navarro, firmly. Sir, step away from the phone. Hands where we can see them. Darius blinked, confused. Darius. What? I'm literally standing in my own driveway, changing my Wi-Fi password. Navarro exchanged a glance with Carter. Then, from across the street, Melanie, yelling, arms crossed. He's lying! Darius turned, eyes narrowing. Of course. Melanie. He's always outside, sneaking around, messing with things on his phone, looking around like he's watching people, and now he's standing in the same spot for 10 minutes, just typing. Darius couldn't believe this. Darius, deadpan. I was updating my router settings. Because someone has been stealing my Wi-Fi. Melanie scoffed. Melanie. Oh, sure, and I'm supposed to believe that? Navarro, turning to her, serious. Ma'am, do you have any evidence that Mr. Coleman has done something illegal? Melanie hesitated. Because, of course, she didn't. Melanie. I just know. Something's not right. Navarro exhaled, patience wearing thin. Navarro. Sir, would you mind if we check your router settings? Just to clear this up. Darius clenched his jaw. This was absurd. He didn't have to prove anything, but he also knew exactly how this could go if he said no. Darius mutters, Fine. He unlocked his phone, pulled up the settings, and held it out. Navarro leaned in, scrolling through the list of connected devices. And then, his expression changed. Something wasn't right. Navarro, slowly. Who owns Crestwood I-01? Darius, shaking his head. Not me. Carter, brows furrowed. Sir, do you realize this device has been running non-stop? Darius, cold. I had a feeling someone was stealing my Wi-Fi, but now I'm thinking they weren't just stealing internet. The air grew thick. The tension was palpable. Melanie, nervous now. Wait, what do you mean? Darius, turning to her, dead serious. I mean, someone has been spying. On all of us. A long, heavy silence. And then, Navarro's stance shifted. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor dispute anymore. This was something way bigger. Navarro, serious. All right, let's take this inside. I need to see exactly what we're dealing with. Cut to black. Navarro and Carter stepped inside, their eyes scanning the space. Simple, clean, nothing out of place. Darius placed his phone on the dining table and mirrored the router settings onto his laptop screen. The list of connected devices appeared. There it was again. Crestwood I-01. Still connected. Still active. Carter, leaning in, frowning. Can you tell what kind of device this is? Darius clicked around, fingers moving fast. Darius, muttering. I can't tell exactly, but... He paused. His stomach dropped. Darius, hoarse whisper. Oh, no. Navarro noticed the shift in his face. Navarro, firmly. What is it? Darius swallowed hard and turned the laptop around. A series of activity logs appeared on the screen. Darius, low voice. It's been accessing camera feeds. The room went dead silent. Melanie, blinking, confused. I don't understand. What camera feeds? Darius hesitated, then clicked another tab. A row of security camera thumbnails loaded. His cameras, inside his home, the living room, the front porch, his office. Navarro, sharp, urgent. You're saying someone has been spying on you through your own security system? Darius exhales, jaw tight. That's exactly what I'm saying. Carter leaned closer, studying the feed history. Carter, grimly. Whoever this is, they've been watching you for weeks. Melanie, shaking her head, voice shaky. No, that can't be right. You must be mistaken. Darius clicked another log. A new feed opened. A dimly lit hallway. A living room. A bedroom. Melanie gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Melanie whispers horrified. That's my house. The footage showed her nephew Brandon walking past the camera, completely unaware that someone else was watching him. Darius, turning to her, voice cold. You sure you still think I'm the problem? Melanie stumbled backward, eyes darting between the laptop screen and the officers. Melanie, shaking, whispering. Oh my God! Navarro, serious. All right, we need to figure out who's behind this, and we need to do it now. Darius worked fast, cross-referencing the connection timestamps with the signal strength. He scanned IP logs, tracking the data's origin, and then his fingers froze over the keyboard. Darius, staring at screen. No way. Carter, leaning in. What? What is it? Darius slowly turned his laptop screen around. Darius, grimly. The data isn't going to some random server. Navarro, tense. Then where's it going? Darius, cold, pointedly looking at Melanie. It's being sent to a house, right here, in this neighborhood. Melanie's eyes widened. Melanie, softly terrified. What? Darius, nodding. It's coming from a house just a few doors down. Navarro's expression darkened. Navarro, urgently. Can you pinpoint exactly which house? Darius ran another check. Within seconds, an address popped up on the screen. He recognized it instantly. So did Melanie. Her breath hitched. Melanie, whispering, eyes filling with panic. No, that's Darius, cutting her off, voice cold as steel. That's Brandon's house. Melanie staggered back as the weight of his words hit her like a truck. Her own nephew. Melanie's hands shook as she led Navarro and Carter to her house. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her own nephew? She couldn't believe it. Wouldn't believe it. Melanie, whispering, voice breaking. This has to be some mistake. Darius followed a few steps behind, jaw clenched. He knew better. Darius, firmly. Check his laptop. If he's innocent, there'll be nothing there. Melanie swallowed hard and knocked. Melanie, softly. Brandon, can you come out for a second? Silence. Navarro exchanged a look with Carter. They stepped forward. Navarro, firmly. Brandon Foster, this is the police. Open the door. More silence. Then a sudden scrape. A chair moving, footsteps. Carter, low, to Navarro. He's stalling. Navarro's patience snapped. He knocked harder. Navarro, sharply. Open the door, now! The knob turned slowly. The door creaked open just a crack. Brandon Foster stood there, eyes darting wildly between Navarro, Carter, and his aunt. His hands fidgeted at his sides. Brandon, nervously. What's going on? Navarro studied him. The kid looked guilty. Navarro, calm, firm. Brandon, we need to check your computer. Brandon's body stiffened. Brandon scoffs. What? Why? I didn't do anything. Carter stepped forward. Carter, sharp. Then you won't mind us taking a look. Brandon's jaw tightened. Melanie, pleading. Brandon, please, just let them check. For the first time, Brandon's eyes flickered to her. His aunt. The one person who had always been on his side. Something in him broke. Brandon, muttering, I didn't mean for it to get this far. Carter pulled out her cuffs. Carter, flatly. Brandon Foster, you're under arrest for unauthorized access of a computer network and unlawful surveillance. Brandon's eyes went wide. Brandon, panicked. Wait, no! No, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Melanie staggered backward. Melanie, soft, horrified. Oh my God! Navarro stepped in. Navarro, cold. How many people have you been watching, Brandon? Silence. Then his voice dropped. Brandon, low, barely a whisper. I don't know. Melanie covered her mouth. Her own nephew, a hacker, a voyeur, a criminal. Brandon was led outside in handcuffs. Neighbors peeked through their windows as police cars flashed their lights. Darius stood at the curb, arms crossed. Brandon locked eyes with him. For the first time, he looked ashamed. Darius, cold, unwavering. You know what's crazy? I was just out here minding my business, changing my own Wi-Fi password. A beat. Darius, firmly. And somehow, I'm the one who had the cops called on me. Melanie flinched. She had no defense. Melanie, whispers, ashamed. I was wrong. Darius let that sink in. Then, shaking his head, he turned away. Darius, quietly. I don't need an apology. Just do better. And with that, he walked back inside. Navarro and Carter exchanged a look before loading Brandon into the squad car. Melanie stayed behind, standing alone in the middle of the street. The truth had been right in front of her all along, but she had been too busy looking at the wrong person. And that mistake, it would haunt her for a long, long time. Darius sat in silence. The house was quiet, except for the occasional hum of his router, the very thing that started all of this. His laptop was open, a news article already circulating online. Local man arrested for hacking neighborhood security feeds. His face wasn't mentioned, but he knew the story was bigger than him now. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Detective Navarro. Navarro, text message. You were right. The deeper we dig, the worse it gets. More devices compromised, more families affected. This kid wasn't just snooping, he was selling access. Darius's stomach dropped. Selling access? To who? Darius murmurs to himself. This is bigger than just some kid messing around. His fingers hovered over his keyboard. He had exposed one piece of the puzzle, but how much of this had gone unnoticed? For how long? Brandon Foster sat alone in a cold, gray room, his wrists shackled, his knee bouncing nervously. A clock ticked on the wall. Finally, Navarro and Carter entered. Navarro, gruff. You want to explain why we found logs going back months? Brandon rubbed his face, looking exhausted. Brandon whispers, I didn't mean for it to be like this. Carter, sharp. Then what was it supposed to be? Brandon hesitated. Navarro, pressing. Brandon, let's cut the act. You weren't just watching. You were selling access. Who were your buyers? Brandon's lips trembled. Brandon whispers, people online, forums. It started as a prank. Then, someone offered me money. Carter leaned forward. Carter, dangerous whisper. How much money? Brandon swallowed hard. Brandon, quietly. $300 per feed. Navarro and Carter exchanged a look. This wasn't just a privacy violation. This was human trafficking level exploitation. And they had barely scratched the surface. Melanie hadn't slept. She sat on the steps, staring at the police tape still stretched across her nephew's window. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the news. Brandon Foster, arrested in cybercrime. Investigation, multiple victims across Crestwood neighborhood. Police urge residents to check security devices. A knock on the railing made her look up. Darius. He stood at the foot of the steps, arms crossed. Melanie's throat tightened. Melanie, softly. I was wrong about you. Darius didn't smirk. Didn't say I told you so. Darius, quiet but firm. I know. Melanie looked down at her hands. Melanie, voice breaking. I called the cops on the wrong person, and it almost cost everyone. Darius nodded. Darius. Yeah, it did. A beat. Melanie, softly. How do I fix this? Darius studied her. Then, with a slow breath, he spoke. Darius. Start by listening before you judge. Melanie nodded, eyes glistening. For the first time, she really understood. A small crowd gathered in a room with a projector screen at the front. A banner read, Neighborhood Cybersecurity and Bias Awareness Seminar. Detective Navarro was speaking to the group. Navarro. If we learned anything from this case, it's that people are too quick to assume, both in technology and in real life. Darius sat in the back, watching. Melanie stood up. She took a deep breath. Melanie. I thought I was keeping my neighborhood safe, but I was making it unsafe for the wrong people. We have to do better. The crowd nodded, people listened, and Darius, for the first time in weeks. He felt heard. Darius locked his phone and looked outside. For once he felt safe. His Wi-Fi, secure. His neighbors, wiser. The world, still learning. But at least now, moments like these show us the truth. Assumptions have consequences. Darius was just minding his business, but bias almost turned him into a suspect, while the real danger went unnoticed. How many times has this happened before? How many innocent people have been judged while the real threats hide in plain sight? Now, ask yourself, have you ever made a judgment without knowing the full story? If this story made you think, even for a second, then share it. Because the more people who see this, the more we can change the way we see each other. Hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life stories, and let's make sure we stop injustice before it starts. Comment below. Have you ever witnessed someone being unfairly judged? Let's talk about it. The more we share, the more we learn. Justice only works when we fight for it together. Subscribe now, because the next story, it might just change the way you see the world.